Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Ad America TV. Hi, I'm Maya Trainer. I'm one of the e-guides at Ad America, and we welcome our audience members joining us online. We truly hope that you are doing well and staying safe amidst this outbreak. Anyway, for those of you who are first-timers here, hi, welcome to Ad America TV for the first time. Ad America is the U.S. Embassy's American Center. Our mission is to provide a space for young generations of Indonesia to learn more about the United States. We have temporarily moved to a solely digital platform, so you can enjoy our program from the comfort of your own home and help flatten the curve of COVID-19. Don't forget to leave your questions in the comment box below, and our panelists will answer them later in the seminar. And for our friends here who are joining us through Zoom, there are a couple of features that you can use to actively participate in the seminar. You can use the raise hand section to ask your questions with your video on, or you can also use the chat box section whenever you wanted to say hi to the other participant and also the panelists as well. Don't forget to use these features wisely, right? Cool. Now, today we will be having the last session of Beyond Silicon Valley Supporting Entrepreneurship in a Global Crisis. But as per usual, before we begin, we are going to have a social media quiz. Are you ready? Okay. The question is it true or false that batik entrepreneurs reported a decrease in sales of up to 15% during this pandemic? I'll repeat the question one more time. Listen carefully. Is it true or false that batik entrepreneurs reported a decrease in sales of up to 15% during this pandemic? Don't forget to leave your questions in the comment. You can participate in this quiz through our social media comment section, and stay tuned till the end of this program to find out who got the right answer. Now we will be having an opening remarks from Deidra Avendasora at America Director, U.S. Embassy, Jakarta.
Hello, and a warm welcome from the U.S. Embassy in Jakarta, Indonesia. This is the latest Ad America iLearn program, Beyond Silicon Valley, Supporting Entrepreneurship in Global Crisis. We are so happy to have with us today Professor Michael Goldberg of Case Western University, and Dantri Emiratillo of Accelerate, and Gundo Susiarjo of Systems Research. The U.S. Embassy supports entrepreneurship for a variety of reasons. Entrepreneurship is a key driver for economic growth. It is an engine for innovation and provides employment for people throughout Indonesia. However, the global pandemic has brought new challenges for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs have had to deal with the impacts of social distancing, changes in supply chains, how employees conduct their day-to-day work, and much more. However, there are also opportunities for businesses to adapt, to create new products, to innovate, and perhaps even create or capture more market share. I thank you for taking the time to learn from each other and to share your experiences as we all adjust to this new normal. And I wish you the best of success in your future business endeavors.
All right, that was an opening remarks from Ibu Deidra. Now, one more thing before we begin. Please don't hesitate to take a selfie and share this moment through your social media and let everyone know that you are having a great time with us here in Ad America. And don't forget to tag us on Instagram at ATAmerica. Now, without further ado, joining us, our facilitator for tonight, Ibu Endang. Hello, Ibu Endang.
Hi, Maya. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about you, Ibu Endang?
We are doing great as well. Thank you so much. It's been 4 weeks, and tonight is the final session.
I know, right? Okay, Ibu Endang, can you give us a little hint about what we're going to learn tonight?
All right. So tonight, well, the rock star is in the room. So the reason why we have the final session in the evening instead of in the afternoon like the previous 3 sessions is because we will have Professor Michael Goldberg himself present tonight and joining us live from Ohio.
Wow. That's really
So
cool. Yeah.
it should be a fun wrap session tonight.
Oh, it's gonna
He
be.
will join us. It's gonna be. So he will join us on the second half of this session. So the first half of the session, again, me and my partner in crime, he's there. Gundo, hi.
Hello,
Hi,
Bapak
Diana.
Gundo.
Hi, Maya.
How are you doing, Pak?
Right, bye. Thank you. I'm doing great.
Great.
Yeah. So the first half of the session, we will first talk about the final section of the entrepreneurial ecosystem that is regarding the capital market, and we will provide it some hints and most updated cases on that one. Before then, we will have Michael Goldberg joining us from Ohio.
All right, then. The floor is yours, Ibu Endang, Bapak Gundo. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Maya. Thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. It's very happy to see you all again through all different platforms. This is the fourth week, and wow, the first experience of having this online instead of offline. Joining me here, as usual, the freshman, Mas Gundo. How are you, Mas?
How are you, Ben? How are you?
I'm doing well. So this evening you have another different background. What is that?
Oh, yes. So I was specifically put that background here because Michael Goldberg is going to join us in an hour or so, right? So the background is a picture of the house of Weatherhood School of Management, which is basically where his office is, right? So the building is designed by the building is designed by the famous architect Frank Gehry, who designed also for the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao, Spain. Okay, so you can see the main characteristic of the curve of the roof, and all that.
Yeah.
So the building is called Peter B. Lewis Building, which is a very well-known entrepreneur rising from Cleveland. He created, he's the founder and the owner, the chairman of the insurance company called Progressive.
And I can see you are proudly wearing Cleveland jersey for tonight.
Yes, this is the Cleveland Browns jersey, so I'm a Cleveland Browns fan to the bone.
All right.
So I specifically wear this for tonight's occasion. So just want to surprise Michael when he join us in an hour.
Yeah, I believe it will be a nice surprise for Michael, and that shows how much you miss US now.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
So everyone, for tonight is going to be super special, and we do hope that you will stay with us until the end of the session. So this is the final session in 4 weeks. We would like to thank everyone who has joined us from the very beginning, and also welcome anyone who just joined us for this evening. Maybe because of timing, some people cannot join it in the afternoon, but they have enjoyed the recorded session. But tonight we are going live in the evening up to hopefully by 8:30 something. Yeah, if time allows. So. Just to reintroduce ourselves again, Mas Gundo, before we start. Myself, I usually called Anna. I am an entrepreneur. I am a corporate veteran becoming entrepreneur. I currently I have founded and running 2 startups and also a consulting company. I'm actively also becoming a business mentor and also a business training facilitator in business schools, including Prasetya Mulia and IPMI in Kalibata. So that's my current activities. Mas Gundo, let people reminded again about you a little bit, please.
Yeah. Well, I forgot what I wrote, right, for the opening session. But basically, I'm a Case Western Reserve alumni. Well, I could be an alumni coordinator for Indonesia. We have about 300 plus alumni from Case Western Reserve University, ranging from industries, entrepreneurs, and also, right. So basically, I'm Indonesia for about bit more than 15 years now. Basically, doing also entrepreneurship in energy sectors and also creative industry. And a few years ago, I started system research, which is basically in the line of what my academic training and also what my past experience in working in the field of decision support systems for policymakers. So that is what I'm doing right now.
Thank you, Mas Gundo. So
Mhm.
let's start tonight
Mhm.
for the session tonight.
Mhm.
Okay, so previously in the previous 3 sessions, we have introduced our audience to the what's so-called entrepreneurial ecosystem and how it could provide significant support to entrepreneurs during crisis. What we say by crises are not only external crises like we are dealing today with the COVID-19 pandemic, but also internal crisis, which is when a business just about to start. It's everyday crisis actually. So it's what I call as
Yes.
internal crisis. So the
Yeah.
existence of ecosystem could help to increase the survival rate of the new business or startups. We have discussed in the previous
Mhm.
3 sessions how the ecosystem are quite different between established or developed countries like United States of America and developing countries like Indonesia and other Asian countries, except Singapore for sure. Right? Why? Because it takes time and effort to establish and integrate such ecosystem because there are multi parties involved in such ecosystem. There are government, philanthropies, intermediary organization, anchor institutions like universities and also capital market. So this part we will talk even deeper with Michael when he join us soon. Yeah, Mas Gundo?
Yes. Yes. I think I've prepared some questions also for him. That
Yeah,
might be, and then we will participation in all the platform. It can be a question directed to us, or also can more interestingly directed to Professor Michael Goldberg himself.
sure.
Right?
And also joining us from the US, also some students and also some audiences from other countries, including Asian countries. So to everyone who joining us tonight in any platform, please feel free to drop your question, whether it will be question to me, to Gundo, or to Michael, or perhaps you want to ask questions to audiences joining us from different parts of the world. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mhm.
So for tonight, we are going to specifically discuss a little bit on the role of capital market because we discussed the role of other ecosystem elements in the previous 3 sessions. So what is it actually capital market? So capital market is basically the crowd of investors that are existed to provide capital investment to businesses in the form majority in the form of equity. So as we mentioned earlier, we explained earlier that in the development of startup, in the 5 stages of development, there are different sources of funding with regards to the to support the entrepreneurs. Mas Gunda, can I check if you can hear me well? I'm a little bit concerned about my internet connection.
It's not as good as the 3 session, probably because it's evening time, so a lot of people are connecting also at this time. But it's okay. We can hear you very well.
Okay.
I think it's better without the video. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. But at one point in time in this session, we would like to see your face. So please come back with the video.
I will.
Right?
That's why I
Yeah,
put
yeah, yeah.
lipstick on.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, continue,
I,
Mbak.
I
Yeah.
really need to check. Yeah. So
Yeah.
earlier we have discussed, on different stages of enterprises. It
Mm-hmm.
has different access to funding. In the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, when we just starting up, we'll be relying on private funding, like our own savings or um, borrowing money from our in-laws family, for example, if they're nice enough
Mm-hmm.
to us. On the second stage, survival, this is the part where, because we already have the product prototype or proof of concept or first customers, then external funding start coming in the form of grants or angel investors, which normally they are quite generous in a term as compared to the capital market. So when the capital market starts to bump in is actually when there is a success being proven from the business. Uh, However, due to the booming of technological startup, the behavior of the capital market has started to change. They start to join or to chip into businesses in earlier time as compared to in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Just to give a little bit of understanding to everyone who joining us tonight, because I believe that there are some aspiring entrepreneurs also amongst us. That previously we mentioned there is the source of funding in general can be categorized into two: debt or equity. Ya, in bahasa Indonesia hutang atau saham, gitu ya, in bahasa
Mm-hmm.
Indonesia. So that is basically has specific maturity period, whether you borrow it from bank or we borrow it from someone we know. Of course, there is a maturity time that we have to repay what we have borrowed. We need to pay the principal of the debt and also the interest in the repayment. When it comes to institutional debt, mostly it requires the fixed assets as collateral. Unfortunately, how do we call it? Non-fixed asset cannot be put as collateral, ya Mas Gundo,
Yeah,
including grade.
I think this is one of the obstacles in in getting the traditional conventional banking sector to support the creative industry. For example, this startup, because they start with just because IP cannot be intellectual property cannot. We see some of the policies in the past few years with the current government, especially when they started the Badan Economy Creative, the Creative Economy Agency. I think they're also looking into how to incorporate IPs into to become one of the collateral, so the banking
Yeah,
can be
yeah,
asked to support. Yeah.
yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
currently it's still based on fixed assets. However,
Yes.
debt has the tax incentive because
Mm-hmm.
the tax is actually being counted after payment of the debt interest
Yes.
after the interest.
Yeah.
However, if in the condition where the business doesn't run well and
Mm-hmm.
then it has to be um, divested or being
Mm-hmm.
terminated, that has senior priority for repayment. So no matter what happened with the business still have to be responsible to repay back the debt to the lenders. So that's the position of the debt. Meanwhile, equity is actually a more expensive cost of capital
Mm-hmm.
as compared to debt. Why? Because there is higher expectation due to the higher risk. Equity I would say, does not have maturity period. The rights of the equity holders is actually the capital gain and dividend payment. So it's pretty different with the interest in the debt side, and no tax deduction effect, of course, because it's part of the assets of the business or the company. In the condition of bankruptcy, there is a proportional losses or no, even nothing being left for the shareholders to gain if the business doesn't work well. So that's the reason why it's called high risk, high return. Yeah. Because when on the debt side, if we put, for example, our house as the collateral, the bank has the right to acquire the collateral for the bank. Okay. Okay, next. The question is, why then we have to open our business to external investor and share the equity that the business have to the external investor? So I'll try to give this an example. So let's say we started a business today with a value of, let's say, we put $10,000 of initial capital. And then, hello?
Yes, Mbak, we can still hear you.
Okay, so because
okay,
I
cannot.
very low.
I'm sorry, I cannot unmute. I cannot unmute just now for some reason because you say the host is not up. Anyway, please continue.
Okay, let me continue. I do apologize for currently I have a low confidence on my connection, so very sorry about that. So let me do that again. So let's say we start a new business and we put a value or the initial investment of $10,000 in the business. So what is the option we have? Let's say, oh, I want to keep it, keep the ownership only for myself. I do extra hard to work on the business. I created the sales. I gathered the team. I recruited the people and things like that. And then along the way, in the future, sometimes in the future, the business grow and it created an $80,000 business. So with the business value of 80,000, because the founder is the only one who owned the company or the share, then his worth is 100% times 80,000 is $80,000. Now, what if after a few times after the initial setup of the company, then we presented the business plan and an investor is willing to chip in, but they say, by putting $50,000 into your business, I require 40% shares. So for some entrepreneurs, there is hesitation to let go the 40%. Now the question is like this: what would be a $10,000 versus $60,000 investment can make into the business? That will be the key question to answer. So with additional capital, it could be that the business can generate more revenue, can generate more profits and better cash flow. The investors probably also provided the founders with mentoring, with access to network, with access to technology, with access to other ecosystem in the market, including universities, or philanthropies, or having better access to government as well. So then the business in the future, the value of the business becoming $5,000. So having 60% share being kept because we let go 40%, for example, means the value, the net worth of the value is about $300,000. So opening up opportunities for the right external investors to join our business is actually a help that an entrepreneur could get, especially in scaling up the business and multiply and replicate the business in a faster way. However, this sounds very good, yeah? Like, wow, multiplied by significant. because then the value is becoming very, very attractive. However, unfortunately, not all the stories are happy ending like Cinderella. Unfortunately, not everything is happy ending. And also, to get someone believed in us to invest in early stage like this, or maybe later stage, it requires some effort as well, as we discussed in the previous session, because or not. So they have bigger eyes and better sights on what the business will look like. They have better understanding on what are the key success factors in the business. So for anyone out there who is trying to create a business plan to be submitted into capital market or external investors, this is the this is even oversimplified story about how your business idea should be presented. It has to present how the future look like. Yeah, how the future look like. Even though in the real life, the future, when it's being realized, might not be as dreamy as it was thought. As I said, not all the stories are happy ending. So, Mas Gundo, would you like to share with us some not so Cinderella story?
Yeah, well, I think before going into that, I think as being an entrepreneur myself also, and then have started a few business ventures in the past. I think one of the key ideas of basically the trade-off between giving up equities or taking a debt, right? So I think sometimes you don't want, entrepreneurs need to understand about, having the controls of the company, by giving up more shares to the people. I think these are the thing that, so I think one of few things that we need to understand is also about being the majority or minority of a company. Those numbers, at least in Indonesia, by Indonesian regulation, watch out for the numbers of 51%, and then 2/3 of the ownership, and then the absolute majority, which is 3/4 of the ownership. So 3/4. So 2/3 is 67%, and 2/3 is 75. 3/4 is 75%. So anything above 75% is absolute majority, right? So basically, you are basically in control of the company. And then, of course, those are the trade-off that I think aspiring entrepreneurs need to look at before deciding on how much equity they want they need to put up. Okay. So I think when we talk about I think we can go to the next slide. And thank you. I think everyone knows about SoftBank and SoftBank appetite in investing in multiple ventures, worldwide, that have a worldwide household name and a global brand. I think surviving the .com crash, early 2000s, SoftBank invested in Alibaba for $20 million, which now become, I don't know, I cannot count them. I cannot count the zeros, right? So it's
a lot.
Yes, $500 billion company. And then because of this soar in the value of the investment, SoftBank is able to leverage on this capitalized value in order to invest in other multiple companies that Masayoshi Son, the founder and CEO of the company, thought that those are the company that will thrive in the upcoming era of artificial intelligence and all that. So
was it done through leverage buyout, the arm holding?
No, the mechanics behind it. I think those are the thing that it can be one of the few instrument that you can actually try to leverage on the capital, right? And then buy up some. For example, I'm holding the chip designer from UK is been acquired by SoftBank by for 31 billion US dollars, and that
Wow.
makes it the largest buyout in UK history, right? And then a few years back, I think 2 or 3 years back, SoftBank created the Vision Fund, which is consisted about some fund from Middle East, Saudi Arabia, and Abu Dhabi in this case, about 60% of it, and then the remaining come from SoftBank alone, and it makes up about 100 billion capital to nurture companies, those companies that you think will survive in the AI era. So this company include, some of the global brand Uber, and then the co-working capital. Yeah, the co-working capital, the co-working startup, which is called WeWork. I think we have it here also in Jakarta and elsewhere in the big cities, and also the Indian startup called Oyo, right? Now, if we can go to the next slide, Mbak Endang, I think, yeah. So the coronavirus has a big, huge impact on SoftBank, the Vision Fund.
Wow. So it doesn't only affecting this crisis, not only affecting small players.
Oh yeah,
but also the big players, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I actually, if you remember the saying, right? The taller the trees, then the stronger the wind, right? So basically, I think, as you can see, this is the source from an article in Financial Times, which is originally appeared in Nikkei Asian Review. So the investment in real estate got hit the most, the hardest, because of the virus, right? Because of the drop in the falls in travels and leisure in the aviation industry as well, and so consumer market, fintech, and some of the thing also give some positive, even though small, like healthcare, technology, and all that.
Yeah.
So, well, in one of the event, Masayoshi, Mr. Sun himself, have this term. I think we can see it in the next slide. Well, the fall in their investment in Uber and WeWork and Oyo, which are the unicorns, and then he said the unicorns had been climbing uphill hard and are suddenly faced with the coronavirus valley, and the unicorns
That's
are
a new term. Coronavirus valley. Where's the mountain?
So, well, the mountain has been, the unicorn has been climbing up the mountain. So, and the unicorns are falling into that valley. So you can see the big impact of the outbreak, the COVID that we are all experiencing right now, not only to small business and medium enterprise, but also most importantly to the big corporation like SoftBank and the ventures with the startups. Right?
So what happened with Uber, WeWork, and also Oyo, the three, I think, most talk about SoftBank investment after Alibaba.
Right. I think with regarding Uber, I think we can read from the news, right? Even before the outbreak, there's been some internal crisis. The Southeast Asia, or even the Asian the region, is given to Grab, right? So basically, and then because of this coronavirus, people are working from home. They are the lockdowns. The cities are having the lockdown policy, so people are not traveling as much as before. It's just even dropped, right? Even some of the hotels, for example, some of the hotels in Bali, I've heard, occupancy that was before the crisis was about 60 to 80%, now dropped to even 5% occupancy. How can people survive, right? So, and then also with WeWork, co-working, even though before the crisis you might read some of the articles on the internal crisis themselves with the founders and all that, but I think with the crisis,
even that happens even before the pandemic hit, right?
Yes, but when the outbreak hit the globally, then everybody stay at home, right? So they are not they don't want to interact, and especially this kind of workplace where you interact with new people almost every day because it's a co-working space. So it's kind of like the conventional workplace where you know the people who's working and who sat next to you in the table, right? The table next to you in the work in the office. So same thing with Oyo, because of the drop in travels and leisure business. People are booking less accommodations or hotels in this case. So that also gave pressure, and all these companies are what SoftBank invested beginning in the establishment of the company.
But
so
this reminds me of something, by the way. Remember that I think in the session 2 we talked last session we talked about that when we say startup, it doesn't always mean app-based business, right? Because these three are somehow app related or app-based. But however, the core business is actually still the fundamental actually the app. The fundamental is actually a platform that connects properties like transportation and living space and hotels. So when the fundamental business got hit, therefore the startup, the app-based startup also got hit. For example, in our term, probably ticket.com and Traveloka as well, right?
Right. Yeah, I think they call it, the term is online to offline, right? So in this case, like Uber started as an online, app, an apps that connects the taxis to the passengers, right? But then it moved into owning the automobiles, rental cars, and then give financing to the drivers to own their own cars and all that kind of stuff. So it's online to offline. Same thing with WeWork, renting spaces and then to be rented out also to the individuals or startup companies, right? So, and Oyo also basically recognizing that there are spaces left in the motels, hotels, or that cannot be sold to the market, so they create these apps to connect the spare capacity of the
so basically their business model is actually based on value network, which connects between the A to the B, right? Between the property owners and the travelers, between the car owners and drivers to the passengers, and between the office spaces lease and the probably young entrepreneurs who require office space.
Startup.
But well, this sounds like a sad story, but let's see on the brighter side. Is there a brighter side? But does it mean we still need the capital market?
Right. Yeah. But because SoftBank has endured the multiple crises, right? For example, the .com crash in 2000 and early 2000s, and then the subprime mortgage crisis that hit America in 2008, and then now the coronavirus. So I think if you read the articles and also some of the other sources, Mr. Son himself very confident that it's just another crisis that they will go through, and then even though it's actually preventing the creation of the second vision fund because of the the pending participation from the Middle East fund on the second fund. So I think he's still very optimistic about how the whole economy is going to go.
So these two shall pass, like badai pasti berlalu, ya.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So so this is some survey done last year by Startup Genome, it's basically saying that 41% startup have about 3 months to keep their business going, right? I think I would say it can be generally applied to most companies because there are, the retained earnings you can only you can only keep it how long you want to keep it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
because you want to, of course, you want to get the momentum, you want to increase the sales, the revenue by reinventing for expansion plan and all that. So I think 3 months is good. Nobody predicted this virus coming, right? And then creating all this global crisis. So I think this is more or less right. And I don't know about the other 59%, right? Maybe it's 4 months or 5 months, which is basically, yeah, it will not solve the problem because this pandemic, I think, is going to stay until until we find the vaccine, and whether we're going to find the vaccine or not, probably we're going to live with this virus, right? So, by now, what do you think about this pandemic now? Do you think it's
Yeah.
gonna in 6 month time, or is gonna continue until next year?
Well, I don't think I'm in a good position to be able to provide predictions in that regard, even though I spent 12
No,
years in
just your
pharmaceutical.
personal feeling about it. Your sense of optimism about.
Well, I'm pretty optimistic on that this too shall pass. And what interests me most is more on the how the world react and manage themselves to deal with this pandemic, because this is something that no one has ever experienced before. I mean, everyone who lived to die did not experience the Spanish flu a century ago. So that's I think what I can say at the moment. I reserve myself from making any speculations because it's an unknown world. But keeping optimistic, what I see also optimistic here is that this crisis force many people to be more innovative. Yeah, to be more innovative, which means not also for the entrepreneurs, but also for, as you just shared, even as big as SoftBank, they are now experiencing with crisis. And of course, in order for capital market to grow, to have a green curve again, they need to find new and feasible businesses to invest, right? Something that's actually probably more relevant to the current situation. For example, the platform that we are using now for this class, which is Zoom. We know that Zoom was actually started up in, I think, 8 years ago, but only recently then it suddenly
they've been in survival mode for many years, right?
Yeah, they have been in survival mode in many years, and then suddenly now they're becoming one of the largest business in technology. Meanwhile, actually, before Zoom, there was Google Meet, there was Skype, right? Also, we know Skype.
Yeah, well, Skype was bought by Microsoft, right? So becoming Microsoft Teams.
Yes, part of the Microsoft Teams as well.
Right.
But how come one is more successful than the others? What are the difference between those? So this is what I think, because previously we talked about why the capital market is becoming an important support for the entrepreneurs. Your slide here mentioned about cash flow, because most of the new businesses does not have enough cash to run the operations. But also the previous slide that we talk about is about the scalability, that the business would have bigger opportunity to scale up when there's more investment coming in. So of course I believe there are good opportunities out there which is relevant to the pandemic situation. But the next question is funding the primary or the only factor of a startup success? Does it mean that when when your business has received large amount of capital investment, then it guarantees success, right? Like we just talked before, like Google Meet. Google is a huge company. How come it didn't, it didn't as fast in competing with Zoom, for example? So I believe there are there are other factors that is beyond just funding that will impact the success of a business. So funding is one thing. So I would like to share this research by Professor Zobnina that she did in 2015, which is quite interesting to look at. So her research revealed that there are different causes of failures or mortality at different stages of enterprise. At the existence, when someone has just started a new business idea, the causes of failure, the first one is a wrong idea. And also improper market assessment. Just to give an example. So let's say if someone said, oh, I want to, because mostly the new business idea came from observing a problem or a pain experienced by a customer. So for example, let's say a university student during this pandemic look at his mom and see that how difficult for his mom to let's say to make a dough of a bread, and then oh yeah, I want to create a tool that can help mothers in making in faster way of cooking or making bread. Now the question is that only his mother problem, or is it a world problem? Yeah, because business means something bigger than just one person problem. It has to be the world's problem. If we remember back in the 60s, there was Joanne who invented the self-ring mop, because in the past women has to squeeze the mop before they start mopping the floors, and then this lady, a housewife, she had an idea of creating a self-ring mop. Kain pel. Okay. So the woman named Joy, woman named Joy, and then she became big business, a very wealthy businesswoman after her first invention. But in order to do that, she needs to prove that there is a market, that it's not only her problem.
I know.
Yeah, it's not only her problem, but the world's problem. On the existence, the cause of failure is also because of the lack of the team. Maybe because at the very beginning of a company, we try to save as much money as possible and try to do everything by ourselves instead of hiring resources. So that's why there is this joke saying that CEO of a startup is actually a chief everything officer. because we do everything. Yeah. The second is the survival stage. On the survival stage, the research showed that the failure came from wrong business model. This is what I found many times with my my mentee or my coachee, especially the young startup entrepreneurs. For example, they invented a good product or invented a good apps, for example, if it's an app based, but they have not clear about how this innovation can generate revenue, or in other terms, why people would be willing to buy, why would people be willing to pay for such things. And then also lack of business and management skills. So of course, mostly when they start a business, they only have experience or knowledge in certain particular aspect of business. However, running a business means you have to learn a lot of things, a lot more. Yeah, a lot more. Not only sales, not only operations, not only finance. It's a lot more. So either you learn it by yourself or you equip yourself with the supportive team. Now, the other is how to scale up the sales. So some of them quickly satisfied with few early customers, which probably only represented a small fraction of the market. The product is suitable for that particular segment. However, it might not be as relevant to the rest of the market. So problems in scaling up sales is found to be one of the cause of mortality at the survival. Now, once it's growing, there is still cause of failure. The biggest temptation when a business starts to be successul is unreasonable expenses. Suddenly, the founders becoming so greedy. In Indonesian term, we call it orang kaya baru sometimes, yeah, because the business is growing so
because they feel very important now, right? So they feel very important. They have to fly with business in business class, and they have to at least 4-star hotels.
So therefore, expenses becoming unreasonable, and also at this point, leadership skills becoming very critical. Why? Because the founder has to start leading more and more people. I remember I mentioned in the previous session about Udemy case. The founders was hacked, was fired because of he could not. He was not seen as a good leader by his team. The other obstacle here is also insufficient number of customers to help, which is related to the scaling up the sales. Even when a business is ready to go IPO, for example, to go public on the take-off stage, there is still another issue, which is inefficient management decisions, because there are more decisions need to be made in the speed of something that we cannot control. Yeah, things are coming all the time, and decision needs to be made. Or insufficient demand for the business, or suddenly the demand is gone, just like what happened with us now during the pandemics, and also lack of knowledge on how to manage the large business. Now, even if the business is mature, there are still issues, especially if we see also from the family business when they becoming big and established. There is reluctance or probably real difficulties in finding the strong managers to carry the business going forward, and have the founders, the family founders, stepping aside and leave the business to the professional hands. And also, of course, high competition and inability to expand product and services, because all the operation has been set up to one particular product or services. Fear of investing in new businesses. So that's what we have seen in the maturity side. So each stage has different causes of mortality, even though funding is there. Though funding is there. So now the question is, having said that, when capital market is available, when capital market is willing to provide funding or support for the entrepreneurs, it cannot stand alone, I believe. Like, for example, we see previously the obstacle is finding the strong managers or finding the right people. There is a role of universities as the anchor institution in educating, right? In educating the new entrepreneurs, educating the new the strong managers to be hired, and also
providing the new set of skills.
Yes, the skills, and also the facilities for experimenting. I think the best period of when we are a university student is we have opportunity to experiment ourselves. And also,
Yes.
yeah, and also for the capital market to be willing to invest more, especially on, during crisis like now, of course, it's related with the government. For example, what are the facilities or incentives that the government will provide for the capital market in, for example, providing investment into new businesses that is being starting up during crisis like now. It could be tax incentive. It could be probably some flexibilities that can be provided. So I think that that's still correlated with the other parts of the ecosystem, and also how the philanthropies or donors probably have different priorities in the crisis on selecting which new ideas or new business that they will invest in. So it goes back to the whole ecosystem again to be the real support for entrepreneurs, so that the entrepreneurs can prevent themselves and avoid the loophole that I mentioned that is mentioned here in this slide. So they can build the right business model from the very beginning. They can have the right skills to run the business, and they have the access and network to scale up their sales. So we're going back to the same discussion again then, how the ecosystem can help, especially in the time of crisis nowadays, that initially probably everyone is trying to save their boat before they can save others. What do you think, Mas Gundo? Hello?
I think we're
Hello?
connected with Mas Gundo, Mbak Enna, right now. But to let you know, we have Professor Michael Goldberg right now. He's in the house.
Okay. Hi, Michael. How are you?
Hey, good evening, everybody.
Good evening from
Michael.
Jakarta, and good morning
Sorry,
to you.
I was. Good morning.
Mas Gundo, sorry, seems you still having a technical problem.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
We can,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm just gonna kill the video. So
you
welcome,
to have
welcome, Michael. Good morning.
You need the video to be on, Gundo.
Yes, I know. I need to. I purposely put the Weatherhead building as the background.
Nice. Making me happy.
Right.
And a jersey, and Cleveland signature
Cleveland
jersey.
Browns, yes, of course. Cleveland Browns.
I've got my Indonesian jersey on.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh yeah.
One of my batiks that I picked up on my trips.
Okay, all right. Let me just try the video. Okay.
Okay.
So good morning, Michael. So we just started about an hour with Bayandang, and then covering the last session is about capital markets, and I think it's been great. 3 sessions before running the course on Beyond Silicon Valley, talking about the examples from Northeast Ohio from the video. And today we don't show any video except the opening from the director of it's just going to be a free sessions where people might have questions, and we have our own questions as well for the course. And I think Baena also, if Michael, Baena.
Yeah. So welcome, Michael. It's a pleasure to have you with us tonight. Finally, it's the final session, and thank you for being with us tonight. So we have some questions already coming in, but I think before that, we were talking about the course that you created, the Beyond Silicon Valley. Perhaps would you mind to share in a few minutes with us what has driven you to create this mega open course beyond Silicon Valley.
Great, thank you, and thank you for inviting me to join. I'm sorry we can't all be together in person, but this is the new reality of the pandemic times, and I know we'll talk about kind of the crisis and impact during our time together. But it's really nice to come together with some old friends like Gundo, who's an alum of our university, and we've spent some time together in both Cleveland and during my trip to Jakarta in 2016, and new friends as well. So, I mean, just a little bit about myself and the course, and then I really do look forward to the questions from the panel and then your questions, because it's more fun to hear what you want to talk about than for some professor to just blab on about what I want to talk about. But just a little about my background. So I grew up in Cleveland, which where Gundo spent some time. It's a industrial city. Originally, you know, we were the 5th largest city in the U.S. And I know you've learned about some of this for those of you that have watched some of the videos together. And I know there's some folks that may be joining for the first time, but we were once a really important industrial, you know, power with entrepreneurs like John Rockefeller, and then over time, you know, we faced a lot of distress in the economy. Our manufacturing economy shrunk, and jobs moved to other places. So, like many economies around the world that are shrinking, political leaders, donors, other businesses are like, what do we do to keep talent and create jobs? So there's been a lot of work done in our state and community, mostly through our regional government, so our state government, to put together programs to attract and retain talent, particularly in the startup world. And I had grown up in Cleveland, and then I left. I went away. I went to Princeton undergrad. I went to got my MBA at Wharton. I worked for a tech company called AOL, which was kind of early in the internet service provider space. Worked in venture capital, and then I ended up coming back here to Cleveland to to take advantage of some of the new programs that were being set up to support startups and venture capital. So I've been back in Cleveland since 2006, so a little over 15 years. And it's been interesting to kind of watch what we've tried to do. I mean, we're not the only city in the US or around the world that is trying to, have the next, high growth, high tech company. And I think companies like the Gojeks of the world, which are kind of fascinating case studies in Indonesia. And we have, we had our first unicorn in Cleveland, which was in the healthcare IT space. And, we've experimented. And I think, to some degree, the lesson of Beyond Silicon Valley course, and we launched the course in 2014, and we weren't actually quite sure, like, if anybody would come. I mean, I'm not like a famous professor on these topics, and as wonderful as Case Western Reserve is, and some of our alums like Gundo are, like, in Indonesia, it's probably like not very well known, right? We're not Stanford.
Well, you are now for a couple.
Yeah, I was about to say that too.
So,
you're man.
we got Gundo as our representative. So we put it out on Coursera, which is one of the MOOC platforms, and we found a lot of interest in the class, and we did a collaboration with the U.S. Embassy in Indonesia in 2016, and did with the folks at what's the name of the Ciputra
Entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Ciputra Entrepreneur.
So they did some
University.
videos,
Right.
which you may have seen, and we have the subtitles in Indonesian. We
Mhm.
ended up with subtitles in 16 different languages. We had 175,000
Wow.
people
Wow.
take the class, and it's really been, these kind of discussions that to me are the most meaningful and valuable, because
Yeah.
everything, it's different in every place. So it's not, let's take what Cleveland did or
Right. Right.
Silicon Valley did or anything else and just
Right.
sort of drop it into, Surabaya or
Right.
Medan or
Yeah.
Jakarta. So I love these kind of exchanges. So yeah, this has been fun. I mean, U.S. embassies, including Ad America, have been great partners. I've been to the space at Ad America in Jakarta when I was there. I think that's where we met first time.
Yeah.
Been to awesome collaborative space. Again, I'm sorry that we're not all doing this together, but it is, it's an interesting moment for higher ed, for the way that we communicate. And so I'm really happy that, you all were able to spend some time together around the course. I've seen some of the videos of the discussions led by the moderators and have been really excited about some of the topics. And yeah, excited to answer any questions that you have and share my insights. But thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Well, thank you for attending. I remember the first time we met, Michael. It was at America in Pacific Place, and I remember you mentioning about Cleveland, and you show a picture of Cleveland, and you asked the audience, who have ever been to Cleveland. I was the only one who raised the hand, and then you recognized me from that exchange. Well, actually, I have a question maybe to start. Watching the course and participating in this session with Ba. And I live in Cleveland for 10 years. Actually, I live more in Cleveland than in Jakarta. Maybe beginning this year, then I will live more in Jakarta than Cleveland. So it's like a second home to me. So, given the historical background of the role of government, philanthropic organizations, individuals, like John D. Rockefeller and all these people, and anchor institutions like Case Western Reserve University, Cleveland Clinic, and all this in Northeast Ohio or greater Cleveland area, that had shaped the community from as early as 20th century, beginning of 20th century, giving birth to Cleveland Orchestra, Cleveland Museum of Art, and other great establishment in the area. How do you see the difference and the challenges in modern times in the region, trying to replicate what have been done in the past to rejuvenate the community? Do you see this kind of synergy happening in other places in the U.S. Or in other places in the world as solid as what we had or we have now in Greater Cleveland?
Yeah, great. No, thanks, Binda. It's a great question. And I'll try to answer it given COVID-19 and the pandemic, because we have these, and in the US right now,
right,
although it's happening around the world, these discussions around equity and inclusion. I mean, it's a really interesting moment. I mean, we have a lot of challenges in Cleveland. We've got, the economic challenges before the pandemic that we're facing the city and our community, and particularly like our African American and sort of urban community were great. I mean, there has been, and I believe this is true in Indonesia as well. I mean, the gap between the 1% of folks that have the most wealth and the 99% is been growing, and I think it's true in Indonesia. So governments, donors, have been sort of trying to think creatively around what to do to help create jobs. And I don't know much about what is happening in Indonesia relative to the pandemic in terms of unemployment, my assumption is there's dislocation that's happening in Indonesia, like here during the shutdown.
Sure.
I saw a report yesterday from some economists about Cleveland. Like, they don't believe that we'll get back to employment levels that we were pre-pandemic, which actually weren't even. I mean, we had a pretty low unemployment in the country, but we have struggles in Cleveland. Like, they're saying it's going to be 5 years at least until we get back to where we were. So you had all of these challenges around creating new jobs and economic growth before the pandemic, and now we've got the current situation. I mean, I do feel like, and I'll be curious what your views are relative to Indonesia. You know, in crisis, it can bring folks together. I mean, we do in the US right now, and I'm sure for those that sort of follow our political system and upcoming election, certainly at a national level, we have a very polarized political system at a federal level where, and some of this is politics and positioning for the election, but some of it is just a real disconnect between people. I actually find it at a local level, like in Cleveland, there is a bipartisan, so there are people from putting aside their political affiliations and are like, how do we try to grow the economy? And that's where, when we get to this topic of startups, which is really sort of the focus of my course and what you guys have been talking about. Yeah. This idea that we can support entrepreneurs. And I know based on what you and Endeng said about some of the folks that have joined this course, it's a lot of younger people and students, and could be entrepreneurs, people that are enthusiastic about the topic of entrepreneurship. You know, how do we, if we're in Cleveland or Indonesia, how do we support these young people? We know that most startup ideas are going to fail. That's just the nature of startups. But you want to encourage folks to do that. How do you give them mentoring, support, and you know, access to capital when they need it? So, you know, this is a very challenging moment for the world right now, given the pandemic. But I think sort of fundamentally, and again, I'm curious, I'll be excited to learn more from you guys about what's happening in Indonesia at the moment. But there's a lot of discussions that are happening in Cleveland about how do we do things differently. You know, donors, philanthropists that, you know, typically set up, you know, a more formalized structure to sort of take in, you know, if you were an NGO in Cleveland looking to support entrepreneurship, there are, you know, regular funding intervals in which you submit applications. But now some of the donors are like, we need to act more quickly, right? We can't wait. Right. So I've appreciated some of the donors, including one of the donors that's been really supportive of my work in Beyond Silicon Valley, called the Bernie Morgan Foundation. Like, they're trying to get more money out the door more quickly. And obviously government has tried to do this as well. So I think it's an interesting, like, moment for governments, for donors, and even the business community, and like, how do we come together? And it's not easy.
So if I might share a little bit on that, Michael, well, the reactions from the ecosystem has been there. For example, the government put bail on a large amount of bail to support the economy due to the pandemic, not only as a financial backup or financial chip in, but also to the direct to the population. But larger amount has been established actually to support existing and new entrepreneurs actually. So they have anticipated also the increase of unemployment rate. So therefore, what is being provided is actually online courses to equip people with more skills and trainings. Because I think, as you mentioned, even pre-pandemic, not only US but also Indonesia, we have unemployment rate as a problem already, and most of the employment are, majorities from the informal sector instead of the formal sector, which means competencies and skill are still something that, the areas of improvement for most of the people. So having this pandemic where most of the companies or most of the businesses are trying to streamline their size in terms of people as well. So therefore, the first thing to do is to equip, everyone who are at risk of being unemployed has to increase their competencies and skill at the moment. But luckily, what I have observed also recently is the frequency of online facilities or online courses for skill upgrade, even given for free by renowned mentors, are so many at the moment, and the interest of people to join it is also increased. So I second to your opinion, and also Gundo and I had spoken about this in the previous session, that just like when Cleveland started in the beginning of 21st century with all the initiatives together with the Third Frontier, with all other Beyond Silicon Valley initiative, as a response to the entrepreneurial crisis that Cleveland had. Now we are dealing with the same crisis, and I do believe that creating new entrepreneurs is a good solution for us to get out from this crisis safely.
Yeah. Yes. I think we can look at the question from the social media, but Anna, I think that we already get some questions, and we can come back to our exchange later. So let's see. We have from Twitter, and then the question is, how do you think can be a solutions that, let's say, this pandemic affected businesses, then one of the most common thing that the business do is cutting off people. That result is another problem, which is unemployment. Is it possible that creating a new startup or business can be a help? Bayana, maybe you want to answer that in terms of the entrepreneurship, small businesses initiative in Indonesia.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, this is, crisis is a good time to create something new as well. I like to use the analogy of a tree. Like when one branch is being cut, the tree has capability to grow a new branch. Mm-hmm. Why human can't do that? I mean, but again, in this country, as we mentioned earlier, only recently that we see people are more excited about being entrepreneurs. In the past, especially our generation, Gundo. Yes. Not to mention that we are old now, but in our generation, we were aspired to be employees or civil servants instead of taking risks to be entrepreneurs. But at the moment when crisis hit, everybody has equal exposure to risk, I believe. So therefore, creating new business is something that that can be a solution. Maybe it's not, as large or massive or high speed. It takes time. It takes time to build that, and it also helps us to filter the best talent available to become solution instead of to become part of the problem. I remember we mentioned last time, Mas Gundo, that mm-hmm. Indonesia is actually being one of the most generous country in the world. Yes. We even have charity crowdfunding, the mm-hmm. kitabisa.com, mm-hmm. that people can gather more than, I think it was more than $600,000 in 3 days. to support health healthcare
Charitable.
professionals. Yeah, the charitable healthcare professionals. And then one singer who had just passed away in 3 hour session of concert, online concert. He was able to gather, I think it was almost $1 million if I'm not mistaken. And then he passed away less than a month after the concert. So I mean, what we discussed previously was, if only that those kind of charity amount being gathered, not only used to feed people, but to become engine for new business that is being starting up during this pandemic, because of course they need those donors to help them as well.
Right. Yeah, coming back to the work of Ciputra Entrepreneur University, I think what it's called. I think the recognition that right now in Indonesia is entrepreneurs only make up about 0.1% of the population, which is, compared to other cities, we need to reach the level of about 2% of the population. So there are many, I think, still a long work to be done in that particular sector. Now, Michael, I have another questions. Just want to know your opinions on this. Given the U.S. as the ultimate capital market in the world that put high values on freedom, individual talents, and innovations, how do you see other countries or regions can achieve such degree of capital markets given the socio-cultural constraint on individualism? Based on your experience traveling the world?
Sure. I mean,
maybe you can share that.
Good question. I mean, it's an interesting moment. I mean, even in our own country with our own current government and leadership and some of the discussions that we're having here. I mean, I would say it was funny. I was just looking up the announcement about Facebook and PayPal's investment in Gojek. And I mean, I think one of the exciting things about the growth of entrepreneurship and tech startups around the world, and obviously Gojek is a poster child, is that they have been able to tap into capital markets and investors outside of the region. So I know there's been investment in Gojek from Chinese investors, obviously this most recent round from Facebook and PayPal. And that growing connectivity, I mean, as you know, Indonesia's, your population size is almost as big as they're around the U.S. So
right.
It is an attractive place for investors to look at high growth, high potential opportunities. So I'm excited. I've only been to Indonesia once, that trip in 2016. It was exciting to see, a growing number of tech startups. And, and what's interesting about, our education system, and Gundo, you're a good example of it. And I know, and then we had talked about maybe at some point you will also get a chance to study, hopefully in the US, which would be great. We have a great, and this is a difficult moment for it because of the pandemic and restrictions on travel and challenges around visas. But I think the openness of the US, particularly in higher ed, to be educating folks like you, Gundo, and maybe and you in the future. So people are coming, because I see this with my students. I'm getting Indonesian, Chinese, and Indian, and Japanese, and European students. You're all coming, mixing with one another, and in the U.S. and learning together. And then eventually, and again, I think Gundo, you're an interesting example. You find yourself back in your home country, but you have these linkages to Cleveland or Case Western Reserve or other people. And, through these linkages, I think come opportunities, come access to capital. One of the things, just interestingly, that we're exploring at our university. And we are by no means the first university in the US to be exploring this, but there are venture capital or angel investor in funds that really raise capital around from alumni of universities. And again, I think this is
right.
a little bit of a unique US construct. Like, and I know there's some amazing universities in Indonesia. I think the US are particularly, some of it may have to do with some of our athletics and the way that we build loyalty to the university. But this idea, and other universities have done it, where you build angel investment and venture capital groups around investing in alumni or students or faculty of a particular university. And so that is happening in a number of places in the US. Actually, I have a call later today with someone who's doing that at Cornell University. So we're sort of looking at these different models. So I actually think that, you know, back to the question even before that Endag was talking about, like kind of at this moment in Indonesia, you know, what can you be doing? I mean, I think these like, you know, connectivity to alums, connectivity to diaspora Indonesians, I think is a really interesting topic.
Yes.
You know, are there Indonesians, US and other parts of the world that might be interested in investing? So, you know, this and these kind of, you know, to me, when we're sitting here, I'm sitting obviously like in my house in Cleveland, all at home. You guys are all in different places. We're on live. It's an interesting opportunity. So, you know, I would encourage those folks, young people on the call and entrepreneurs, like, there's really nothing stopping you from kind of making.
Yeah, this is the best time for the entrepreneurs, and these are the things that we discussed with Daniel in the past few years. You know, when he first arrived here, how to build. You know, is it realistic to build these bridges to bring non-US innovation to US capital market, and vice versa, in introducing US capital market to innovations that is maybe more local to specific country like Indonesia. So I'm imagining this, you know, where you have a mutual fund, like, you know, in the past you have emerging market fund, or even some very specific fund for healthcare fund and all this. And then you will have something like Indonesian fund or Indonesian startup fund, where basically the idea is to tailor this money or this funding that have a particular interest in a particular sector in Indonesia, where all these talents and innovations, untapped market, untapped innovation can be seen to U.S. Venture capitalists and entrepreneurs alike, to, you know, to look at this opportunity to invest in those areas. I think this is the moment where, because from my experience coming back to Indonesia 15 years, this is why I asked you before, you know, given the social cultural constraint on individualism in all these countries, it is very difficult to try to realistically build this ecosystem to the level where you have it in the US. So if you know, we can't wait for that, right? Because the talents, the innovation, the idea will die away if you don't feed them. Just like the trees.
And the crisis forced us, and the pandemic forced us to do it faster.
Right. So those are the work that I like to see this happening, starting with this alumni network with Case Western Reserve University, with the Think Box, which we show in the third session last week. You know, I think those bring a lot of interest, because startup eventually can mean, I mean, you know, startup can mean any process, any device, any prototypes, you know, not only an apps, right? So Baina, I think you want to.
Well, I would like to ask to convey this question that we also received from the audience, Michael, if you don't mind, and maybe Guntur, you can also help us to respond to this question. So someone posted a question through Instagram regarding the entrepreneurial ecosystem. How will the widespread destruction of small to medium-sized businesses can affect the overall productivity in a state or in a country? So we're going a bit macro here, Michael.
Yeah. I mean, I did some work just as an example when we launched the MOOC in 2014. One country that was a place that I had never visited before that took a lot of interest in the class was Greece. So Greece was having kind of an existential crisis, economic crisis, and what was interesting about that economy was, and I think their percentage of the population that was working for government was like really high. I think much higher than certainly the U.S. or Indonesia. But you didn't have an economy that was like particularly entrepreneurial. I mean, you mentioned again a relatively small percentage of people in Indonesia that are involved in entrepreneurship, which I don't know, it's probably not so different than other places in like the US, just on a percentage basis. But Greece, it was like very small. And, out of the crisis, a lot of young people that were planning on going into government, those opportunities weren't there. So they started to look at entrepreneurship a little bit out of desperation, right? So it's like, okay, what can we start? And so, I mean, to the question from the participant on Instagram, I mean, yeah, it's devastating. I mean, I don't think there's no like way to sugarcoat or sort of see any good news in there. I do think though, out of this desperation, and again, perhaps it's folks on this Zoom or watching on Facebook or Instagram, like, I think the question of the individual where you're a university student graduating and you don't have a job, or, young people that have lost their jobs is like, all right, what do you do? And, what problems can you solve in your community with a new business idea? Obviously there are challenges. How do you finance this? Because launching a business does take money and resource. So I'm hopeful that out of this crisis we'll see the creation of new startup companies in Indonesia and Cleveland and other places. But it's very difficult. But I think, again, to me, the commitment of like Endagyu and Gundo doing this, the embassy folks joining. I mean, this pandemic time is a weird time. Like, on one level, every day feels the same because we're not back to normal, but people are still busy. So like, I think a commitment to being on calls like this. I mean, the other thing that I'll mention, and it's not just my class, like there's a lot of resources that are out there. A lot of it's available for free, particularly right now in terms of like online courses and information. So while we're kind of all stuck inside, or maybe you're transitioning out of a job, like, how do you skill up? Like, what do you do during this time period? We're doing something next week. I'll share, everybody's always welcome. The time difference doesn't make it so easy. Actually, this one's particularly bad for Indonesia. I think it's at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So it'd be like, I don't know, 1 a.m. your time, but we'll tape it. You can watch it later. We're doing something with like somebody from LinkedIn about how to make a great LinkedIn profile. And actually, a few of you I know have already just connected with me on LinkedIn. Maybe this is the time you do a great LinkedIn, how do you create an awesome LinkedIn profile? How do you start blogging? Let's say that there's a topic that we talked about today that you're interested in. LinkedIn's a good place to do it. There's other ways to do it. How do young, and I know, for most of you, English isn't your first language. But if you're listening to this and you're participating in things that Ad America offers, hopefully, and sometimes maybe my accent isn't always the easiest to understand, but like you're committed to improving your English and writing in English. And I think these are the kinds of things, obviously, depending on what kind of business you might start, use this time to kind of improve your English skills, improve your conversational skills, improve your writing skills. And that may help you in the future get a job if that's the path you take, or even if you're doing a new startup company. I think so how do you take advantage of this time? Because it's not easy for anyone.
Yeah, right.
I would like to extend this question a little bit, Michael. One of the aspects or the element of the government financial stimuli that has been launched due to the pandemic in Indonesia is actually providing a couple of supports and incentives for the small to medium-sized businesses. For example, tax holiday for small and medium-sized businesses that fit into the requirements. Also, debt restructuring, especially the bank loans restructuring, or postponement of the interest payment. So and also the free courses on on skills needed to start online businesses. So those are some few out of all the contents that they provided as a support, and especially included in the bail that they of the money that the government has prepared. I'm keen to know what's your opinion on that. I mean, to what extent such support can help with regards to the question that our viewers asked, to save a state or to save a country from a massive productivity decline?
It's the $1 billion question. What's the currency in Indonesia? I forgot.
The current what?
Sorry?
What's the currency, the name of the currency?
Rupiah.
Billion rupiah question.
Indonesia.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think governments are experimenting right now. I mean, in the US, you've seen at a federal level, direct payments to individuals. You've seen different loan programs at a federal level to small businesses to try to keep people employed. I think you're seeing state and local government experimentation to help. I mean, obviously the service economy. I mean, I know tourism is a huge industry in Indonesia, particularly parts of Indonesia. I mean, I feel I'm a huge, I love traveling. Like, I really am feeling for folks in the tourism industry, right? It just is like, it's we all want to get back to traveling again. And so part of this is just like, if you're in a startup or you're in a service industry serving tourists, it's so hard. I mean, we always taught, there's this term in the startup world about pivots, right? We're like, oh, just pivot. And, there's been a couple of, like, I'm sure there's some stories in Indonesia, maybe I was going to use this example, but maybe this isn't good for Indonesia, but like, people that were making some sort of whiskey in the US are now making hand sanitizer, right?
Yeah.
Maybe the whiskey business isn't so big in Indonesia.
We still make whiskey.
Okay.
or maybe the other example is fashion industries shifted to make now currently producing masks.
Yeah. Exactly, right. So we're seeing that. Those are good stories. It's awesome. But it's not, this pivot is very challenging. I mean, if you're in Bali, or Lombok or somewhere, I mean, I don't know. So, can you somehow, and this is why I think, actually, to your question, and talking about what we do now, like, and this is hard, but like, how do you use this time to just, and actually the tourism industry is an interesting one because there's probably a lot of, if my guess is, and I've never been to Bali or Lombok, but I'm guess, English language fluency and use is really important to serving and engaging with tourists, right? So
with the guests.
How do you, and even if you had to start up a new business opportunity, so I guess I would sort of challenge young people, old people, how do you use this time to kind of get ready? I mean, knock on wood, like we're going to get back to traveling again, right? They're going to get a vaccine at some point. This is not, forever. So how do you kind of survive this period, but like do things to get yourself ready?
Yeah.
So when things come back, you're ready for that opportunity. And, if you're a restaurant owner or you own a nightclub, this is a hard, and again, I don't know what's happening in Indonesia, but here,
yes,
and even the last week's been really tough. I think certain parts of the US that have opened up more quickly are not having a rise in cases. So, this is a challenging period. But I think these kinds of, again, these sort of get-togethers and building networks, and my guess is like just even Gundo, you and Endog, you're willing to help. I mean, I just I just put my LinkedIn connection. Like, you never know who can. I mean, and it's not always so easy to provide that help, but for those, and I know Ad America has a bunch of different programs for folks and really good social media connectivity. I mean, my guess is, and I haven't asked the people at Ad America, but my guess is they're probably seeing big spikes in people attending these things. And
yeah. But that's
do you
a very
still
good
run
point.
your classes, Mike?
What's that, Gundo?
Do you still run your classes? Do you still run your classes in this pandemic? How do you do it? Is it online?
We're off right now for the summer, but we're gearing back up. I mean, it's going to be, and I'm sure this is true at the universities in Indonesia.
Yeah,
we're trying to figure out how we welcome students back safely, right? Because with social distancing and so this is a huge. I mean, are the universities? I don't know what the calendar is. Is this the time? Are the universities off right now?
It's off, right?
It should be starting up actually in July again.
In August,
schools and universities should be started up. So currently, it's a new students enrollment time.
And are universities planning on welcoming students back to the campus?
No. I mean, in normal ways, in normal days, June, July is the period of new academic year starting. Okay. So new enrollment of new students in schools and universities. However, the delivery will be still, I think, will be done online.
Yeah.
We still have one more question. Regarding of the time. Michael and Gundo. So this is also another interesting question related to the pandemic. Again, I hope you still don't mind to answer. During the pandemic, a lot of new business thrives, answering to the new situation. For example, the e-commerce, like people start selling things online to get new market. But the question is, when people start shopping from their home. The question is, do we think this kind of business will last when the pandemic is over?
I think absolutely. I mean, I think we know that there's going to be the disruption that is happening because of the pandemic is going to usher in some changes to the economy, changes to the way we procure goods and services, like, and then, you know, and we're not going back. I mean, I think even the way that we work, right? So I was talking last night to a friend who is a consultant, you know, who normally travels every week, right? So now she's not traveling at all. And they're realizing, oh, we can actually do this work without a lot of the travel. So that business, which is a service business, is, you know, she said they just told their landlord their lease was coming up, so they're not moving back into their space. Now, that's bad for the landlord, but it's changed, you know. So on this e-commerce piece, I mean, and I saw it a little bit in Indonesia when I was there, just again with Gojek and some other ways that people were getting delivered goods and services. I mean, yeah, I mean, the ease of online commerce, you know, the tools, the security, things are getting better and better. And it's, I mean, it does pose a lot of challenges. I mean, and I'm sure this is true in Indonesia. I mean, we worry about our small business owners, you know, in our communities, because that's, you know, we want to buy from local businesses. And no offense to my friends at Amazon, but, you know, it's if everybody only uses e-commerce from large tech companies, it's going to really destroy local bookstores. So, you know, it is a lot of questions about what this all means, but yeah, I think there's no turning back. I mean, there's a lot of fundamental changes here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I second to your opinion. I mean, this pandemic actually push the speed of the diffusion of the innovation, right? So because previously people are still like feeling, I don't feel right to shop something if I cannot hold the products on my hand and examine it before I buy. So therefore, the e-commerce had to give a lot of sweetener, right? So people will be shopping from online. But nowadays, then people are pushed towards buying it online. So somehow it gives benefit also for the online. I mean, personally, I also started an IT solution company specifically for the pet business communities, introducing, we were the first one who introduced cloud-based transaction system to help the business owners managing their transactions on a real-time basis. Yeah, on a real-time basis. Previously, they used offline or even manual handwritten
bookkeeping
invoices for their customers, or no good monitoring on their stock management and things like that. So we were benefited a little bit because of this pandemic, because now our target market had being pushed to adapt and incorporate new technology into their business, because their customers are unable to always visit the clinics or the pet shops or the salon anymore. So we also, for example, last time helped a zoo in Jakarta, because also that's part of tourism and entertainment. So the animals, the operation to feed the animals starts to become problem for the zoo, and we created a virtual tour to the zoo, so helping the zoo. And in less than a week time, we managed to get sufficient donation to help the animals and the operator of the zoo. So people are introduced to new behaviors, and especially the virtual world. I could not imagine if such pandemic happened 30 years ago. That would be a totally different story.
Right. Yeah, I think this pandemic forces us to work in a different way. For example, I never used Zoom before, and I always hate it when we have to do a a virtual meeting, and because of the connections, because of, I'm not as technologically savvy like most of the people, or most of the younger people, the millennials. So I hate it when people ask me to join the Skype but then with Zoom, it's very easy to use and it's very effective, and actually it's actually some of this thing arising from the crisis, from this pandemic, is actually give a very positive feedback on working more effectively, because as you know, Michael, Jakarta is very well known for its traffic, right? When you were here, probably you experienced this. And I working from home for me, this 3-4 months has been really, really satisfying, because I got a lot of work more. I got more work done on working this way, and plus, these sessions, we can do this online course. You in Cleveland now, what is it, 9:30 in the morning or 7:30 in the morning, and we are here. We can discuss and share experiences, and having people join from. I think this is also broadcast in Cambodia, Phnom Penh, and
other countries.
Yeah, in other Southeast Asia countries. We'll know from at America team how many people are viewing these sessions, because I think they managed to broadcast that you are going to attend the sessions. So I think, we have about 3 more minutes, Michael. So I think by Endang, if you have any more thing to say to us, I think we don't have more questions from the social media.
Yeah.
So maybe if you have anything to say to Michael.
I would like to appreciate Michael for sharing a lot of resources for free for us this evening. So anyone who joined us outside Zoom, unfortunately, guys, the privilege is not there. So for anyone who joined Zoom,
I can post on Facebook too.
Yeah, that will be also great. So thank you so much, Michael. Really appreciative to get so much of valuable resources from you. You shared with us the upcoming free events on the from the case, and also your very famous book Beyond Silicon Valley. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No, great. Well, thank you guys. I mean, and for those that joined and spent their busy evenings with us. And again, connect with me on LinkedIn. I look forward to keeping in touch and trying to support you guys in any way you can. Excuse me. All right, that's the advantage that you get. A goodbye sneeze from me here on sorry about that.
Bless you, Michael.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry about that. But it's great. It was a pleasure to be with everyone. And I'll look forward to keeping in touch.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we expect as the first session.
Thank you, Michael.
The previous session. We do expect that some viewers are actually watching this session on a recorded version. So I do believe, I do hope that everybody who watched or viewed these 4 sessions together with us gain values and benefit of spending their time with us, because this is the final session. So this is definitely a goodbye also to all the audience who had been staying with us for the whole program since the 17th of June. Since the 17th of June. Yeah. After Shawwal.
Right.
So again, thanks so much, Michael, for spending time with us in your early morning, and I hope we can see you anytime soon.
I would like it. Well, thanks everybody, and thanks Ad America for hosting, and look forward to being together when we can all travel again, either in Indonesia or in Cleveland.
Yeah, in Cleveland. Yeah, we hope, Michael, we hope to have you come and maybe in the next program, maybe with the alumni chapter in Indonesia. We have this idea of having you coming to talk about design and innovations. Maybe we can talk about that with the Prastya Mulya, Mbak Endang, maybe next time when everything is back to normal again. Yes, thank you so much. Michael.
Thanks,
So
everybody.
we're gonna spend the next 15 minutes to summarize. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a
All right.
good day.
Okay.
Thank you.
That was
So
fun.
Baindang, I think
Yep.
I think there are no more questions. So yeah, that was very fun. So we're gonna spend the next 15 minutes maybe to summarize the fourth session that we had on the Beyond Silicon Valley course. Maybe you wanna start something, or what's your thought on these four sessions? And after talking with Michael, and firsthand.
Yeah. So what we have discussed so far, we know that the support for the entrepreneurs in Indonesia are existed, and we are in the midst of significant growth of attention being given to the entrepreneurs from different elements of the community. So this pandemic, I would believe, should not stop great ideas to bloom and to build a strong and solid foundation for future strong business. Yeah. So we, as Michael also mentioned, this is a good time to equip ourselves, especially the aspiring entrepreneurs, to become to learn about new things, to upgrade the skills. For example, if we take example of athletes, we know that Olympics is being postponed. Yeah, Mas Gundo. But they don't stop training.
Right.
They don't stop training. They know that even they cannot train outdoors, they find ways to keep training themselves indoors to make sure that their strength and endurance are still maintained. So is, I believe, the strong people, the strong entrepreneurs who held their belief that the pandemic will be over, and the winner will be those who start early from now, not waiting until the pandemic is over. Because as I mentioned earlier, as I mentioned repeatedly, that this pandemic is not like a football game that is going to be ended up on certain period of time. It is also not it is not also like badminton or volleyball game that will be ended after a certain number of scores is being reached. So since no one is aware when it's going to end, so waiting is not an option. Starting is an option, and it can start small. It's going to be a good way to start experimenting in small scale and get the communities to help, get the mentors to help. Since the pandemic kicking, my schedule of mentoring business business communities or new business or new entrepreneurs even busier than before. So I could have like almost every day mentoring or coaching, business coaching for different clients, and that's a good sign because people, instead of being desperate or depressed, people are actively seeking for solution. So that's, I believe, one thing that we should appreciate, disregard of how bad this crisis trying to hit us. So we have to keep that spirit alive. Yeah, we have to keep that spirit alive. And also, this is also the time, as Michael also mentioned, there's no turning point. It will be the new life after this anyway. The life that we filter has given a stronger filter on what kind of business idea that can survive in any future crisis that might happen. So that's also something we learn from this situation. And that's what I would like to wrap up with, Mas Gundo. How about you? What are the final messages that you want to share?
I want to put some of my personal final thoughts on the Beyond Silicon Valley and what Michael is trying to aim with the, sharing the experience of Northeast Ohio, Greater Cleveland. And I've been blessed that during my formative years, I left Indonesia when I finished high school, 18 years old, and it was during my formative years that I got to expose in the the idealism of the society that the U.S. Provide to the rest of the world. I think in Greater Cleveland, because of the historical past of this starting of the beginning of the 20th century, where U.S. innovation is basically was driving the whole new process and new outlook on the new economy, becoming the leader of the world, right? So I think these historical paths they're trying to replicate in the area, in the communities, with the third frontier and fund for the economic future and all these ventures to restart, to rejuvenate the economy, the local economy. And I think this book or this course enables other communities like us in Indonesia to learn from that experience. What are the role of government in supporting entrepreneurship and the anchor institution, and how we can kind of build towards that kind of interactions and integration, synergy between those institutions, and recognizing the role of entrepreneurs. When I came back to Indonesia 15 years ago or so, I never, I was always dreaming to become a teacher, university professor, and that's what I wanted to do. And I had some experience doing that at Case Western Reserve University, doing research and all that. So coming back to Indonesia and, slowly accepting, maybe it took me about 3 years to accept the calling of becoming entrepreneur. It totally kind of a bit spiritual to me personally, because then you try, you recognize the role of entrepreneur in any society, right? Because they're the one who create new process, new products, bringing new innovation to the public at large to give benefits to the whole community or whole population. So I think is a very noble profession and a noble calling. And again, as I explained, and we discussed this over and over, it is the best time for entrepreneurs to live right now because of the ICT, the connections, 5G is coming, and all these kind of advances in technology. And what is curious for me, because I never had this interaction with Michael to talk specifically on what he has done in Beyond Silicon Valley. So I think it is very hopeful in the sense that, US as the ultimate capital markets is now looking into other markets for these untapped innovations or talents, right? From this individual or group of individuals from the startup entrepreneurs, right? So for example, some of the funds that is thrown to support Kopi Kenangan and all these local ventures. But it is also, I think, there will be also these bridges that is being built by alumni like me or alumni from other U.S. universities that are bringing this, introducing these new talents and new innovation to the U.S. right? So it's vice versa. So I think if we cannot reach such level of ecosystems like what they have in US here in Indonesia, there will be always these bridges to bring this, to channel out this innovation coming from our country to US. For example, I just want to share some example. Joy Alexander, the kid who basically the youngest Grammy nominee in the history of Grammy, coming from Indonesia, right? And contributing to the religion of America, which is jazz, more or less. So I think it's very interesting to see that people are looking into this country, this society that brings Joy Alexander, and the what is it called? The kid from Kelapa Gading, not Jakarta,
Yeah,
who who has millions of YouTube viewers on his hip hop song. Well, he was called Rich Tiga before, but now I think he's Brian. His real name is Brian Emmanuel. So Rich Brian, sorry, Rich Brian.
Rich
So
Brian.
I think somebody from Indonesia who can contribute to African American culture. Yeah, Brian. Yeah. So I think that says a lot about this society, and I think it's a very encouraging news that we receive, and I will expect more and more coming from our millennials and our Generation Z in the coming years and decades. Yes, by now. I think I will leave the closing statement, the last 4 minutes. I leave it to you as the main facilitator in this 4 session.
Thank you so much. So I would like to have the final words before we close. We know that this pandemic seems to make everything slowed down, right? People felt in a slow motion mode at the moment. But I would like to recall the wisdom from Confucius, the Chinese philosophers. He said, "A seed grows with no sound, but a tree falls with a huge noise. Destruction has noise, but creation is quiet." So even the world is slowing down now, we can create something in silence. And when the time comes and the hibernate is over, that's the time for the seed that has grown to walk into the world. So stay.
I like that,
stay
Brian.
positive.
I like that.
Stay positive and stay focused. And there are always other opportunities in the corners that people can see. So that's probably what I would like to wrap up. So thank you, Mas Gundo, for
thank you, Brian. Thank you.
4 sessions. Virtual high five.
Yeah.
Virtual high five, because we cannot.
So
we
catch up. We catch up offline, right?
Sure.
we catch up offline because we have many ideas and things to work out after the pandemic is over, right? So let's do that.
Also,
thank America for the opportunity to share our experience.
Yeah, and also our highest appreciation to Ed America for trusting us to host this important program. And we do hope that everybody who joined us has taken some benefits and use of what we have shared. Thank you so much. So I'll return the stage to Maya.
Okay, thank you so much, Ibu Endang and Bapak Gundo. So that wraps up this series, yeah?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bu Endang, Bapak Gundo. It has been a great honor to learn a lot from both of you. Once again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you again next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, the rest of you, please don't go anywhere because I have the name of the winner for our social media quiz today. Earlier in this event, I asked you guys, is it true or false that batik entrepreneurs reported a decrease in sales of up to 15% during this pandemic? And the right answer is false. Sales actually decreased by up to 30% and with sharp decline. It would be hard for entrepreneurs to maintain their business. And our winner for today is @Wirawantri from Instagram. Congratulations. Now, you may be wondering, how can I develop an awesome idea for a place like this? Easy. You can go to our website at www.atamerica.or.id, click create an event and collaborate with us. All proposals coming to us will be reviewed and your event might be featured here soon. And while you're on our website, feel free to subscribe to our newsletters for weekly event updates sent straight to your inbox. All right, everybody, I think that wraps up this series. It has been fun, but unfortunately, we have to say goodbye for now. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at AT America for event updates, fun content, and so much more. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you again in our next program. Bye!